What's up, Internet? Mike the CPA here. Welcome back to the channel. On this channel, we teach finances, investing, and taxes to give you a well-rounded financial education so you can build wealth. Most of us who are coming to check out this video probably realize we are headed towards or may be close to a large recession in this country. If you haven't considered the possibility of a recession and how it might impact you, then I'm really glad you're here, and please listen up. Have you thought of what might happen to your hard-earned money if the market fell like a rock? And by like a rock, I mean if the market dropped 50 to anywhere up to 75%. What would you do? How would it affect you? This is a very real possibility over the next few years. And not being aware that it's coming or having some sort of strategy to deal with it could really set you back financially for years to come if you're not careful. Over the past 5 years, I've learned several strategies that I'm planning to employ when the next recession comes and before it hits. I want to share these tips with you today, and if it can help you, great. But if anything else, at least it gives you some new things to consider of what you might personally do for yourself. I'm not going to be going into the detail of why I think a recession is coming, but I do think one is finally going to come sometime between 2020 and 2022. I have 10 strategies in all that I'm planning to utilize, with the first area being in cash. One of the most important things to have that I've learned during a recession is having some sort of cash reserves. Of my total net worth, 20 to 25% of it currently sits in cash. With our cash account, we have it broken down into different categories. So we have a cash account for repairs for our home, repairs for our cars, we have funds for a mortgage, and we also have cash reserves if my wife or I lost our jobs. So regardless of what happens to us financially in the market or with our jobs, we have enough cash to take care of our mortgage, and we are by no means in any risk whatsoever of losing our home, which is our number one asset. Building our cash reserves has been something we've been focusing on for years now, while simultaneously investing at the same time. The other area of cash that we need to be cautious of, though, when we're talking about saving cash, is keeping an eye on those FDIC limits. You know, when you go to the bank, they say your dollar amount is insured up to this amount. That's what I'm talking about by FDIC. Currently, it's around $250,000, but during the times of a recession, if you don't know this, I didn't know this, the banks can actually lower that amount. So if you were all of a sudden thinking your cash was insured for up to $250,000, they can actually lower that. And so when you go to the bank, you try to draw it out, you can't access your money. Currently, I'm in the process of now moving money around so that doesn't happen to us. The second part of our strategy is, if we're going to be investing, is to buy defensive investments. By defensive investments, it's basically the concept of buying investments in companies that people are going to need and use regardless of what the market's doing. They're going to need the services and products of these companies. So companies like consumer staples, like food, so things like McDonald's, things like Procter & Gamble, things that you need your cell phone and things like that. There's so many basic services people use on a daily basis that regardless if the financial world implodes, people are going to still be buying those products and services. And utilities is a perfect example of that. Just because you're in a recession doesn't mean you're going to stop purchasing electricity or gas or water. These are all things we need and use. And when we're going into a recession, having these kinds of investments is very helpful. And they're less likely to go down in value. Doesn't mean they won't or they can't, but if they go down in value, they'll probably go down in value much less than your other investments, like investments in technology and other sectors. The other thing I'm doing is, when I'm buying investments, many of these investments I'm talking about, when I say defensive, pay dividends, brings in income. Even if the value of the stock fluctuates during a recession, I can still expect some sort of income to be coming in. Now, for me, it's not enough for me to live on by any means, but at least there's money coming in, I have cash flow coming in. If I really needed to access it, I could. Companies could cut back their dividends during a recession or scale them back, but usually it's a temporary thing. And then as the economy improves, they will step up those dividends going forward. The next part of my strategy is really diversifying my portfolio and managing risk. How do we do that? Well, diversification is a big factor in that. You can diversify your portfolio by sector. You can diversify it by asset class, such as commodities, having some cash, which we talked about earlier, having real estate, and having other investments outside of the stock market. By sector, what I mean is there's different sectors of the economy or the stock market. So there's energy, there's healthcare, there's consumer staples, consumer discretionary, there's in technology, things like that. So basically making sure not only are you diversified, you have investments in different sectors, but also you're cautious about how much of your total money that's in your portfolio. Be wary of how much of that money is in each sector. So if you have a portfolio of, let's say, $100,000, let's say, then you would want to be cautious not to have more than $10,000 or $15,000 in each sector, because otherwise you're over allocated in any one given sector. So diversification, I think, is a key factor in managing your risk and preserving your wealth going forward if a recession occurs. The fourth strategy to consider is taking profits. You might have some investments at this point if you've been investing over the past 5 or 10 years with some pretty substantial gains or unrealized gains in your account. Now might be the time to consider maybe selling off a few of those shares to at least make sure that you're locking in some of your profits before a recession hits. What I would hate to see for anyone, including myself, is to have held those investments all those years and not taken any of the profit off the table, and then having everything you own go to a loss because you didn't bother to try to sell off a little bit of that to keep some of the profits. That's my fourth strategy and something I think you should consider. I actually took some profits off the table back in November and captured about $4,000 in gains. Easiest money I've ever made in my life. The fifth strategy that might sound weird to you is I really want to avoid trying to catch a falling knife. Now, there is a very popular concept in investing known as dollar cost averaging. Many of you have heard it. I'm a fan of it, but still, even if you're a fan of dollar cost averaging, you have to be careful trying to dive into the market when it's falling like a rock. What I've learned over the years in investing is to not try to catch a falling knife or not try to buy something just because it's going down in value, but only by looking at the charts and figuring out when the investment's starting to stabilize and then make my entry at that point. By doing so, I found myself having much more success when it comes to investing. I don't always buy things when they're low. I usually buy things when they're stabilized or moving upwards, because that ensures my chance of success of the investment actually going in the direction I want it to. I know it sounds weird. You've always been told to buy low and sell high, but sometimes buying low, when you buy low, it can move a lot lower against you, especially in the time of market turmoil or if we're going towards a recession. Strategy number 6 is position sizing. Now, I've mentioned position sizing in another video, and I want to do a very detailed video on position sizing because it's one of the most useful things I've ever learned in investing is risk, and that really deals with risk management. When we're talking about position sizing, you're really minimizing the risk when you go to invest. It's knowing how much you should try to invest into an investment at any given time to protect your capital and to protect you from yourself. So just having an idea or a strategy of how much you want to invest in at any given point is going to help you, especially if you want to invest during a recession. So for example, if I saw a recession occurring or a major pullback in the market, I would want to get in, right? I would be enticed to say, ooh, things are going on sell. But I'm not certain of if it's at the best price or not. I'm not certain of that, right? How do I know when the best price is? Well, I don't. I don't. There's no way for me to fully know, right? Even if I'm looking at charts, I still could be wrong. So with position sizing, I can say, okay, well, knowing that if I feel I have a low probability of success, I'm only going to invest a little bit of my money, just a little bit, because I don't feel fully confident in that investment or that entry point. So position sizing, by doing things like that, and restricting how much capital I put in, especially if I don't feel good about it, but I want to participate, has really helped save me a lot of losses, or avoiding getting in a bad position, and it's really helped increase my overall gains within my portfolio. Strategy number 7. I don't know if you guys have heard of these, but they're out there, and many of you probably know about these, but inverse ETFs. Say it with me now, inverse ETFs. If you don't know what that is, Google what are inverse ETFs, and what they are basically is a way to hedge your portfolio. They are a parachute. So if the market starts falling out of the sky, if you have inverse ETFs in your portfolio, what they do is they do the opposite of what the market's doing. So for example, a common one is one that tracks the S&P 500 or SH, but there's one for the Dow, it's known as the dog. These are inverse ETFs. So what happens with these is if the S&P 500, for example, let's say it falls in value, right? So the S&P 500 is dropping, but if you buy and hold in your portfolio, if you've put money in to one of these inverse ETFs, especially one that does the opposite of what the S&P 500 is doing over here. So while this is going down, your account and your investments are going down in value, your inverse ETF is going up in value to stabilize the overall value of your portfolio. You would want to have the right amount. You have to mathematically calculate how much of this inverse ETF you would need to balance your portfolio out. But for example, if you have a portfolio, let's say it's worth $50,000, and you know that if the market tanks, this inverse ETF is going to double in value. Well, you'd want to have at least $25,000 invested in this inverse ETF, or accumulate up to that point over time, so that if the market does crash, this will offset the drop in all of your other investments. And you don't have to sell off your other investments. But the value of your portfolio will stabilize and you'll still have the same amount of money, or near it, that's the concept of it, at the end of the day. And I can make a whole video about that at another point. Or I could actually make a video about most of these concepts, but that's basically the concept or the idea behind an inverse ETF. It's like having a hedge or a parachute in your portfolio. It takes extra money to do that. You have to purposely put money in there just to let it sit for that kind of situation, but at least you have it and at least your money is more protected. Not something you can do in your 401k, but within a brokerage account or a self-directed retirement account, like a Roth or an IRA, that's something you can do. Okay guys, number 8, not panic selling. One of the worst things people did during the last market crash was they panic sold. So in 2008, many people who were already retired or about to retire basically had to re-enter the workforce. A very sad situation. But a lot of them, what they did after the market crashed, of course, they were so fearful after seeing their life savings be depleted so quickly. What did they do? They said, well, I'm afraid to lose any more money, so I'm just going to take my investments off the table, I'm going to move it to cash, and I'm just going to get out. Of course, what happened after that? About 10 years later, they would have made all that money back and then some, right? Panic selling is not something you want to do. So having the right investment mix, like for me, having dividends in my portfolio or investments that pay dividends, I'm not going to stress as much as if they fall in value. Because why? I still have money coming in every month or every quarter. So I'm fine. Basically, be cautious of making any large moves, especially after a market has crashed. Sometimes the best thing to do is to do nothing at all and wait for the market to rebound. Now, I know some people don't have that option in terms of time, but if you're young, you probably do have, you can probably let this thing ride out and just sit, basically do nothing, and just let the investments ride back up, because I'm pretty sure they eventually will, even after this next recession. However, it might take several years to do that. It took about 10 years or so to see the highs we're at today. Bottom line, be very cautious about panic selling. And if you're thinking you're gonna panic sell, if you're gonna emotionally react to a large drop in the market, you might consider selling off some of your investments now or in the near future, just to protect yourself from yourself. The 9th strategy or tip I have for you guys is really nothing to do with your investment account or your retirement account. More so though, with your updating your resume, having a LinkedIn account, having an account on Indeed or these different job websites. Get that stuff updated, guys, because for most people, including myself, the worst financial hit that I could personally take is if I lost my job. If my wife and I lost our jobs, we would lose our income, and that's what we use to build our wealth, right? Having your resume updated, having those things squared away is so important. And I think if you can have that ready, because you never know what's going to happen if a large recession hits. So hopefully your job is safe, hopefully my job is safe, but who knows? It might not be. It is a possibility. Having that stuff updated is going to not only allow you to sleep better at night, but you would be ready to go hit the pavement, well, pavement online, right? Because that's where most jobs are found now. If you needed it, hopefully you'll never need it, but if you did, at least it's up to date, and that is taken care of. The last tip I have for you guys in preparing for a recession is making sure your debts are taken care of. They're gone, they're paid off. And by debts, I mean your credit cards, maybe your car loan, maybe your student loans, whatever you can do to help get those paid off before then, it's gonna really help you. If you can't pay them off, if you don't think you can pay off some of these debts because they're so large before a recession would hit, having cash reserves, like we talked about in tip number 1, can help you keep your debts current, especially if you have an auto loan or something like that. At least you can keep your car. You know, hopefully, more importantly, if you have a house, keep your house. If you haven't thought about it already, please consider it, because it's really going to allow you to not only sleep better at night, but it's going to help position you if a crash comes. The last thing I want to leave you guys with today is, with this upcoming recession that everybody's talking about right now, is if you can survive the financial hardship of a recession, you are going to be in great shape. Because if you have cash in the bank, if your job is secure, or at least if you're ready to go get a new job quickly, if it comes up, then you can take advantage of the largest opportunities probably in your lifetime. If you think about Warren Buffett, actually if you look at Berkshire Hathaway, he's got a lot of cash sitting on the sidelines right now because he expects a recession is coming, and it is. I don't know when it's gonna come, but it's gonna come. And that's when everything goes on sale, when stocks go on sale, real estate goes on sale, that is the best time to buy. And when you're buying when things are cheap, that's when it's much lower risk than right now when buying when things are really high. So those strategies are all things to consider, but the point of these strategies is to really help you get in the best position possible for this coming recession so you can take as much advantage of it as possible. There's many people out there, including if you read books or listen to the Rich Dad Radio Show by Robert Kiyosaki, he says that this will be the greatest money-making opportunity in anybody's lifetime. It's once in a lifetime, and if you're ready for it and you have the knowledge to take advantage of it, you're gonna be better off more than you've ever been, ever in your whole life, if you know what to do when this recession comes. Let me know in the comments what you're planning to do to protect yourself during a recession. I would love to hear what strategies you're thinking of implementing, how you're preparing, things like that. Leave those in the comments. Everyone in the community can benefit from each other's ideas. If you guys liked today's video, please do me a huge favor and smash that like button. Especially let me know if you want to see more videos like this. I could even go more in depth in separate videos on the topics we discussed, or the strategies I discussed earlier on. Please share this information with a friend. There's a lot of people out there who could benefit from this information, or at least give them some ideas of what people are doing if a crash comes, which I do think it's coming. Lastly, if you're brand new to the Money in Life TV, welcome to the channel. Our goal and mission is to help you become fiscally fit, and we do that by teaching finances, investing, taxes, and more on a regular basis. So don't forget to subscribe. You can do so by hitting that red subscribe button down below and just hit that bell notification icon. That's gonna notify you every time we release new content on the channel. Thank you so much for being here today, guys. It really means the world to me. Live life uncaged, have a great week, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.